What we heard about Syria in particular, as you asked that, is that the Saudis asked the United States for targets inside Syria when it looked to the world that the United States was about to intervene militarily in Syria. The Saudis wanted to take part, I would think in a token way, but they wanted to put, I guess, some planes into the operation, and they wanted some targets to hit, and the Americans refused to give it to them. So this is something that angered, obviously, the Saudis. And number two, they were told by the United States, and this is all, by the way, according to a diplomat who was in a meeting with Prince Bandar, the head of the intelligence operation in Syria, in Saudi Arabia. He called some diplomats over the weekend to Jeddah to really explain why Saudis are so angry at the United States and why they did not give their speech at the General Assembly, and more importantly, why they, even though they campaigned for 2 years and spent a lot of money and time and trained a dozen diplomats at Columbia University in New York to become a member of the Security Council, and that the day, a few hours after they were elected, withdrew. So he was explaining in this meeting to European diplomats why why Riyadh was so angry at Washington. And one of the things he mentioned was that in addition to the United States not giving targets to the Saudis inside Syria, that the Americans told them they would not be able to defend the eastern province, which is really the bedrock in many ways, the cornerstone of the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States for all these years, the defense agreement that the United States would defend Saudi Arabia. Oil fields, of course, the most vital part internationally in the eastern province. The United States would not or could not defend them, and I think this really incensed Saudi Arabia. So as a consequence, they have decided, they said that they will no longer cooperate with the United States in training rebels inside Jordan, that they are going to depend more on the French and the Jordanians now.
So also they probably mentioned that they will buy weapons from elsewhere, and we've seen Turkey signing a contract with China, buying missiles from the Chinese. Do you see that there is a watershed here in the region with regard to relationship between America and conventional allies?
Very much so, perhaps. I mean, this is still early, but yes, that is also correct, that they said they might buy weapons elsewhere and they may not sell as much oil to the United States. Excuse me, find some other customers to take their oil or some of it. So yes, there is a big change going on here, and it maybe stems from the conflict in Syria, because this is at the heart of it. And also, most importantly, perhaps, is the rapprochement, or the opening, I should say, from the United States and Iran. This has also, of course, angered the Saudis a great deal. They feel isolated now if the U.S. is moving away from Saudi Arabia and opening up to Iran. This would have been unheard of in Riyadh a short time ago. So this idea, this obviously made the king pretty angry, and I think that's why he made the decision to give up the Security Council seat. And one of the factors might be the United States has become a much bigger oil producer in just the last few years. Suddenly we've seen that they're becoming independent to some extent. That might figure in as well, why the U.S. may not feel as dependent on Saudi Arabia.
On the financial side, do you expect that Saudi Arabia may pull out some of their reserves here in New York and elsewhere as a kind of retaliation to Americans?
We haven't heard that. We didn't report that, but that wouldn't surprise me if that happened, but I have no indication of that.
What would the American response be if they tried to do that?
I don't know. It depends how much they took out. Don't forget the Chinese hold more American debt than Saudi Arabia does, and they depend more on China. But it could have an impact. It could, I don't know, maybe that could in fact wake the Americans up more. And would they draw back from Iran talks on nuclear issue because the Saudis are making a financial move like that? I don't know.
Judging by history, do you believe that Saudi Arabia is that much independent to take such decisions?
Well, this is a big question. A lot of people, as President Assad said apparently in Syria in an interview, maybe with your television station yesterday, that the Saudis are completely dependent on the United States. They'll make a lot of noise and never do anything to hurt their relationship with the U.S., that they are captive of the U.S. I'm not so sure about that. I think there's more of a give and take than people sometimes indicate. I think that they...
You believe they have some leeway?
I do. I mean, I don't know. This could all be just bluster from Bandar, and because we don't know whether the king approved his remarks or not. I'm sure he was aware of them, and it might be a game that they're playing, good cop, bad cop, or they're just floating out a balloon out there to see how the U.S. would respond. But even the fact that they've done that, and he said that and allowed this to be leaked, shows there's some measure of independence from Saudi Arabia to the United States, that they withdrew from this seat. In fact, the article says Bandar was quoted as saying this was going back from the Security Council seat was a message to the United States, not to the UN. He made that very clear. So if they're sending a message to the United States, that shows some kind of independence. If you're completely a slave of someone else, you wouldn't speak up. So I don't think that relationship is all one-sided. But it remains to be seen whether this was just talk on Bandar's part or whether we're going to see action.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Lauria from Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. Okay.